Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you all for joining. Inshallah, with the mercy and the rahmat of Ar-Rahim and Rahman, we would begin. All praises are due to Him, and He is the Rahman and the Rahim. Today, we are at the 14th session of this year, and as always, step by step, we are moving forward and we try to bring some of the ayat or the surahs and the parables and allegories in those divine words for the listener today and for the listeners tomorrow, inshallah. Our subject today, we have taken this Surah 7, ayat 180, and the key word is Asmaul Husna. Asma comes from the word ism, name or names. Asmaul Husna, the beautiful names. There are three different ways that you will find in the Quran referring to the names or the words used for Allah. For example, Ism, Kalimat, and the attributions or the names of Allah. An example, 99 names of Allah. But then there are two others, Ism and Isme Azam, and then Kalimat or Kalimae Tamat. What is the difference between three of them? The 99 attributions of Allah mentioned in the Quran, if you would look at them, each one of them would represent a living being. Attribution of a living being. Attribution of Allah's manifestations. If we take an example or two, and let's take the example of Khalik and Rabb. And if you say Allah is first and the last, the Zahir and the Batin, and Allah's attributions as mentioned in those 99 attributed names of Allah. And if we take these two for an example, Khalik and the Rabb, and if we do not attribute those names with the living manifested Imams or the Prophet. And we say, no, these are the pure, Azli wa Abadi, ever living and ever present from the beginning to the end, belongs to the Allah. Then at the time when Allah had not created the creation, before that, Allah was not Khalik, nor he could be called Rabb. Then this attributed name of Allah, the Khalik, only came into existence after the existence of the creation. And there was no reason for Allah to be Rabb, the nourisher, without the khalqat, without the creation. You see how simply we have proven that attributed names of Allah belongs to the manifestation, the creation, not to the absolute Nur, not to the absolute Allah, the way we think of him. He is above all, and he is above all of the attribution. And he says, do not attribute any of these names to me, meaning he is above that. All of his attributed names belongs to the living manifestation, and it comes into existence with the creation. Another 4 names, which is first and the last. Those are the opposite of each other. So is it Allah first or the last? If you say he is first, then he is not last, he is first. And if you say he is first and the last, then we are talking about the multiplication where Allah is alone, the one. There is nothing opposite to him. He is kullu wallahu ahad. In other words, absolute one. Nothing opposite to him. Even when Allah said that there is nothing like me, he says, there is nothing like my creation. I have made my creation on the face of Allah, just like me. And there is nothing like my creation. Then can you imagine the Nur-e-Ilahi, which is absolute, and nothing is like that, nor any opposite copy of him. And when we say he is Zahir and the Batin, again, this attributed names tells us that he is the Nur of the Batin of the manifested Zahir. Again, alluding to the creation, not to the absolute Nur. So Zahir is attributed towards the manifested Imams in this respected time and the prophets in that respected time. So where is Allah Zahir? In his manifestation. Where is Allah Awwal and Akhir? In his manifestation. And where is Allah Batin? In his manifestation. Because Allah has no opposite to him. He is absolute and above all the attribution that will relate to him. He is above all of that. So our subject ayat is Surah 7, ayat number 180, in which Allah says, to Allah belongs the most beautiful, the most exalted names. So call on him by them. Because Allah is so absolute. Noor-e Mujarrad, that one cannot reach him, cannot comprehend him, cannot understand him. He is out of the minds and thoughts and the dreams, absolutely above anything and everything that you can imagine. So how do we get to him? How do we call on him who is absolute? So Allah gives us, guides us, helps us how to call on him. So he says, call on me with my most beautiful, the most exalted, my living and present names. Call on him by them. Another word, them, cannot be used for Allah, but Allah's manifestation, as there are many manifestations of Allah in the form of Nabiyan, messengers, Natiqeen, Aimai Tairin, and Arife Kamalin. So call on me by them and leave those who deviate concerning his names. When we come to the next slide, I would explain further in detail what does it mean that leave those who deviate concerning his name, who are not understanding nor have stood fast in the Talimat and the Tawilat of the Qur'an, and when they deviate concerning his names, then just leave them. Soon they will be recompensed for what they do. They will be recompensated for what they do, because they did not believe in Allah, his guidance, and therefore they did not believe in the manifestation and manifested names and attribution of Allah. Leave them. Allah will compensate them for what they do, inshallah. Let's come. As our lesson continues, you will notice on this chart that we have taken two of the ayat which we have referred to in our past two classes. in our past 2 sessions. Step by step, we are moving forward. In one of these sessions, we talked about Surah 7, ayat 179. And then the other session, we talked about same Surah, ayat 178. And today, we are talking about same Surah, ayat 180. To have a fully comprehensive understanding of this ayat, I have put them together for your view, for your listening and understanding. So there would be no doubt at the end who are the most beautiful, living, manifested names of Allah. Who are they? So let's start with 178, then come to 179, and then come to our reference of 180, and we will add one more punchline, ayat 181, from the same surah, surah 7, surah Araf. 178, whoever Allah guides, very particular group of people, whoever Allah guides, he is the rightly guided. And whoever he sends astray, it is those who are the losers. Indeed, we have created many jinn and the people who are destined for the hellfire. Why? Why would Allah would do that? And what would be the end result of that? That their hearts, they do not use for comprehension. It is them, not Allah. It is them that their heart cannot think, cannot understand, cannot comprehend. Their eyes, they do not see. And their ears, they do not hear. And what are they not understand? And what is that they do not see? And it is what is that they do not hear? What is that? And just because of that, Allah says about those humans who have closed their hearts and closed their eyes and closed their ears to the truth. To the truth. Allah says they are like cattle, animal. Allah said, no. Even animals obey and listen and prostrate willingly or unwillingly to Allah. But these people, because they have closed their hearts and their eyes and their ears, I do not even want to call them animal, because there would be the insult to the animal, because animal, even that they do not understand anything, but they still follow and prostrate to Allah. These people are worse than animal. Allah said, nah, even further astray. These are the one who are entirely heedless. worse than animal. Who can be worse than animal? Which kind of human would that be? Those who have intentionally, knowingly have closed their hearts and minds to the true guidance. And remember, Allah guides those who wish to be guided. And those who have intentionally, you remember that lesson? We have done it about 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Those who have intentionally closed their heart and mind toward the guidance of Allah, and those who have intentionally closed their eyes and they do not see what is right from wrong, and those who have refused to listen, to be guided, and they have closed their ears so they do not hear. They are not animal, they are worse than animal, further away, because they intentionally have done that. Whereas animal, even though that they do not understand anything and everything in the creation of the God, willingly or unwillingly prostrate to him. But Allah criticized those who intentionally have refused to listen, to see, and to understand. Then Allah says, Allah has the most beautiful names. So call upon him by them. If you wanted to reach to Allah, and if you want Allah's mercy, then call Allah with his beautiful names. Call on him by them. And those who deviate in his names. The Arabic word Allah have used for the word deviate has another meaning. According to the Arifin and Arif Kamil, he has used this word that if you would check this word in his Manvi Mane. Manvi Mane meaning inner meaning. English translation of the word is correct, deviate. But it means in Urdu first, kaji karna. If you would look at the Urdu translation of this ayat, out of these 5 translators, you will find 1 or 2 translator using this word as kaji. Kaji means kanjusi, short, or hide, or shortchange in Allah's name. And Allah's beautiful names are the names or the living manifestation of Allah. So do not shortchange him in his names. Do not do kaji. Don't be stingy. So when you call on him, be generous. Use his living names to invoke him, to call upon him, and do not deviate from his names. Meaning, do not deviate from his living names. Otherwise, no Muslim or no person who believes Allah deviates from the word Allah, Khuda, Rabb. No one deviates from the word Allah. Whom do they deviate from? From his living and present manifested name. Allah says, they are shortchanging themselves. कजी करते हैं Allah के नाम में. They are stingy when it comes to the names, the living and the most beautiful and most elevated and most glorious names, the living names of Allah. And that's how they have deviated from the Sirat al-Mustaqim and the living guide of Allah. So leave them. Leave them. Do not argue about them. Do not worry about them, as Allah is sufficient and Allah will punish them soon. They will be punished for what they do and they used to do. The last ayat as a punchline to complete the understanding of these 4 ayat, read them combinedly. And among those we created in the creation, Allah is speaking of you. If you ever want to find your mention in the Quran, if you are rightly guided, if you are with the open heart, eyes and ears, and if you do invoke Allah by his most living and most beautiful, most elevated names, then Allah also speak of you. Versus those who did not want to call Allah by his most beautiful names. So Allah is speaking about you in the Quran right here. And among those we created, amongst the all humans, there is one group that guides with the truth and establishes justice accordingly. And who are this one group? At the highest level of Ta'wil, Aimai Ta'irin, and along with Aimai Ta'irin, the Mu'mineen. This is the one group, Bani Adam, generation after generation, Nuran ala Nur, Imams that guide with the truth and establish justice accordingly. And those who are with this manifested living Nur, the Imams, belong to that one group. And if you reverse this 4 ayat, then there is a one group who calls on him with the truth by the names of the living manifested, the most beautiful names of Allah, and forget about and leave those who have closed their hearts, eyes and ears. And Allah only guides those who want to be guided, and they are the rightly guided. Let's come to our next slide. if you look at the books of our Dayan and Hujatan, the books of the ilm of the true faith, you will find the mention of God's name and how those beautiful names are the true names, the living names of Allah. And you will find that again and again. So what we have talked about today, we have talked with the modern language, but this is not the new ilm. But this ilm always have been there for those who would like to be guided. So let's read some of this. Here we have a two quotation from the two different books. The first one, in the important pre-Fatimian esoteric Ismaili text, Kitabul Kashf, the book of Unveiling by Jafar bin Mansur al-Yaman, says that every messenger and every imam in every generation is the name, the living name of Allah, the beautiful name of Allah. So by means of which Allah is invoked in that particular generations. Allah, the most powerful and mighty is He, said, Allah has the most beautiful names. So invoke on Him by the means of them, the living manifested name. That is to say, Allah has imams who guides toward the right path, as we just read in ayat number 181. And the messengers whom He has chosen, selected. Therefore, seek proximity by obeying them, and for they are His gates, Bab and Babul Abwab, and the means by which His created being reached to Him, the Almighty. Second quotation, when the light of the Imam, the nur of the Imam of the time, says who? Bir Nasir Khusro, shone upon my soul, though previously, before then, I was like a black night, dark. But when His nur was upon me, I became the shining sun, like a daylight. The supreme name is the Imam of the time. The Name Buzruge Imam Zaman, us, says Bir Nasir Khusro. Through him, Imam, like Venus, I ascend to the heaven. Subhanallah. One more quotation from the Buzurgwar Allama Sahib. The title or the subtitle of this is the Mazhar of the most beautiful names of Allah. It should be known that the divine names have their mazhar, locus of manifestation. They are the prophets and the imams in their respected time. It is they who, according to the verse in our subject, Surah 7, Ayat 180, are the Asmaul Husna, the most beautiful name, the most exalted name, or the best name, because every prophet and every Imam in his respected time is in the rank of the supreme name, Isme Azam. So remember we talked about three, Asmaul Husna, Isme Azam, and Kalimai Tamat. Here we are talking about the Asmaul Husna are in the living form, in the shape and the manifested prophet and Imam, and they are the supreme name as well, Asmaul Husna and Asmaul Isme Azam. Thus, the mother, locus of manifestation of the two names of universal mercy, the compassionate, the merciful, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim, which are mentioned in the Tasmiyah and Surah Al-Hamd, is the Holy Prophet, and vivid proof of which is in this verse, Surah 21, Surah Anbiya, ayat number 107. And we did not send you but as a mercy for the world, speaking of Prophet Muhammad. In addition, there are certain names among the blessed names of the Holy Prophet that shows the same position of him being the mother, such as for the Prophet and Imams are said, same as what is said for Allah. And that is that they have four names: the Awal, the Akhir, the Zahir, and the Batin. The first and the last and the manifested and the hidden mentioned in this Surah Hadith, Surah 57, Ayat 3. These names are among the blessed name of the holy prophets as well as Imams and Allah. The next reference also comes from the Buzrugwar Allama Sahib. The subtitle of this is two kinds of names of God: verbal and living. Verbal and living. Before we read this one, let me explain what does it mean. One is verbal and one is living. For example, the verbal name of the fire, Aag. If I would write down fire or Aag on my hand, the verbal name of the attributed fire, my hand will not burn because I wrote down fire on it, Aag on it. Or if I write down fire on piece of paper, the paper will not burn down. Or if I write the fire on this wall in front of me or behind me, this wall will not burn because I wrote Aag, fire on it. Because it is just a word, and the word has no power whatsoever. Whereas the living fire, if I put that on my hand, it will burn. If I would put it on a piece of paper, it will consume and burn. And if I put it on this wall, not only this wall, but the entire apartment will burn down. You see the difference between the word and actual living attributed word? Huge difference. The verbal has no power, whereas the actual has all of the attribution of the word. Just like that, in the Quran, you will find many words, ism, kalimat of Allah, but they are just verbal, just written words, cannot do anything for you, cannot do anything for you. Whereas the living names, words, Isme Azam, can do much because it is the living attributed name of Allah, and that can do much and a lot for you. So let's read. So in this book, Allama Sahib's right, there are two kinds of names of God. Looks like we have two references on this page as well. One comes from the Majalis-e Moyudiya by Mohiddin Fiddin Shirazi. He writes, there are two kinds of names of Allah. One type are those names which are verbal and composed of letters, ABC, which a script writes and sometimes also erase. So for example, you can write fire, nur, light, and then you can erase it. Whereas the other type are those which are living, speaking, rational, and noble names of Allah. And they are prophets, legatees, and imams. The Rasul, the Wasi, and the imams from him, who are the standard and sign of the hereafter, the guides of Tawheed, and the means and intermediary between the worshippers and worshipped. Tawheed or Tawheed. What is Tawheed? What has been taught to you from inside of you without any mix-up, in this purest form. Tawheed and Tawheed, another word, Wahi. What has been given to you and taught to you from the above without any mix, in its purest form. Now the second reference comes from Allama Sahib's Buzrugwar's book. What great treasure of countless blessings are those beautiful names of God, the blessed, the exalted. What wonderful, soul nourishing, and faith illuminating light there are in them. There is no doubt that the Imam of the time is his supreme name, and the sacred and ventured Naqsh. Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah. May praise be belong to Allah. Inshallah, with that, we'll stop here. Now, if you have any comments, any question, anything that needs to be further explained, please let me know. Thank you so much for joining. G.
Thank you, Aziz sir. Yali Madad.
Yali.
So amazing to think about this. Even something as simple as saying, what is the names of Allah, that we should have some, enough material to have a lecture. And I'm sure if we wanted to, we could have lecture upon lecture or session upon session. But something we normally think is just something simple. Okay, name of God. Who doesn't know the name of God? Every religion has names of God they use. But I think that itself, maybe in a way, should tell us something. That if we think that, well, everyone has names of God, what's so unique, what's different? There must be something unique, because why should our Ismaili Tariqa, which we have understood is about the batin and layers of knowledge, if my understanding today of names of Allah, I share the same understanding as my next door neighbor and his next door neighbor, then there's something must be missing. So I think this is fascinating, the concepts of the names of Allah. So we have chat is open, and let me just open that so everybody can chat with everybody if they need to. Any questions anybody has on the session, please, you know the drill. You can type it into the chat, or you could raise your hand. Okay, we received one. Oh, sorry, that's not a question for this session. Any questions that are related to this session about the names of Allah, please, you can type it in or raise your hand. So while we're waiting for that, Aziz sir, I was thinking about earlier how you started this session, and also towards the end about the names of the first, Allah being the first and the last, and the Zahir and the Batin, or the manifest and the hidden. Now those names are all as pairs, right? First implies has to be paired with something as the last, and the manifest with the hidden. And other verses of Qur'an says that Allah is the one who created all the things in pairs, and the only thing that does not have a pair is Allah. God cannot have a pair as such, because he's created the very concept of pairs. So it's very ironic. I mean, on the one hand, he will say that Allah is the first and the last, and the Zahir and the Batin. Now those are all concepts of paired things, and that makes a thing can be paired, but Allah is beyond being a thing, like the way his creation is. So right there in itself shows us that there's something which needs ta'wil, that we should not think of Allah as being that himself being the first and the last. That belongs to the concept of creation, which implies that all those names refer to something which is within the world of manifestation, or that we can see as, that we can recognize as created, but not the creator itself.
Subhanallah, yes. Not only they are in pair, but they are in opposite to each other. Whereas Allah is one and absolute. Gee, subhanallah.
Okay, so it looks like we're getting some questions. Now, the first question, what is manifestation or effects of reciting Qahar and Jabbar, or Jabbar?
Gee, even some of the names of the manifested Imam. So when do we see Qahar? We cannot imagine Allah being angry. And Jabbar, that he will force you to do something. Whom these two attribution do you normally see in? That's how the question should be addressed. Whom do you see these two attribution? Qahar and Jabbar. Angry and forceful. In our parents, we see those two attribution in our parents. Father being the Jabbar, forceful, and mother being angry. For what purpose? Can we say those are two bad attribution of the human? No. No, those are not bad attribution of the human. Matter of fact, those are the good attribution of the human. Because if they do not force you, and if they do not get angry at you sometime, then how will they guide you and keep you on the right path? Let me give you an example of that. This is not my example. I have borrowed this example from my teacher. Have you ever seen a mother early in the morning trying to wake up the children and then dragging them down to the school while the children are crying, yelling, and screaming? What do you see in the mother at that time? The attribution of Jabbar and Kahar combinedly in the mother. Is that a bad attribution of human? No, that is a good attribution of the mother. Because if she was not angry and forceful with the children will never wake up, they will never go to school, they will never learn, and they will never grow up to be the good human they should be. Just like that, Allah or the Imam, willingly or unwillingly, take the humans on the right path, willingly or unwillingly, happily or unhappily, and sometimes even unknowingly if they do not walk forward knowingly. An example, do we all believe that we are all from Allah and we shall return back to Him one day? Do we all believe in that? Yes, we do. But do you see the humans? Most humans do not want to return back to Allah. So they are returned back to Allah unwillingly. Most humans are not happy about returning back to Allah. So Allah pushes them and forces them to return back to Him unhappily. And let me explain the last one, knowingly and unknowingly. Those who are the Mu'mineen, Salikin, Abidin, Arifin, they return to Allah knowingly, happily and willingly, whereas all of the others return to Him unknowingly, unhappily, and unwillingly. And which two attributions Allah uses for that? Al-Qahar and Al-Jabbar. You see, even though they sound bad, but they are very, very, very good for the humans at the end. As the children, they are really good for them at the end. G.
Thank you, Aziz sir. To push that question a little bit further, which I'm thinking, I wonder if that's also part of the question was, what is the manifestation or effects of reciting it? So if we as Mu'mineen, if we recite, Al-Qahar or Al-Jabbar as in the form of, let's say, our zikr or tasbihat, is there a particular effect of reciting these names? And actually, let's add to that question, and maybe sound common sense, but let's take a minute to analyze further the difference between reciting a name like, when one recites Al-Qahar as opposed to, let's say, just reciting Ar-Rahman. would there be any real difference that one would experience with the different names, or do they all have the same effect, or is there a specific time and place to use particular names like this? And what is the effect it has on the moment soul?
Very good. And definitely we should have the understanding, ilm of these names before we recite them. When we are seeking and asking for mercy, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim would be the path, the way to invoke him and his mercy. But when we feel fragile, humble, or when we feel that I am not getting anywhere, doesn't matter what I do, I'm not able to reach to him. Then in the form of Giri-Awzari, say to yourself, Ya Allah, doesn't matter what I think and do, I'm not able to understand anything and I'm not able to get to where I need to get to. So use your power of Al-Qahar and Al-Jabbar forcefully, unwillingly. Take me, overpower me, control my soul and my wish, and take me with your utmost power. If you could understand that and would say that in Giri-Awzari, oh my God, that will bring so much power in you that you will see your path shake and your path change. Because now you have invoked the anger and the power of Allah. Willingly you have done that. And when that power comes, you will shake and your path will change. That is definitely a way of using those names with the ilm and understanding, and with those ilm and understanding only. Otherwise, it would not do you any good. Then you better off invoking his rahmat and mercy by using Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. G. All of your question regarding 99 names of Allah. G.
Okay, there's a question earlier that was, does it make any difference, or what is the difference between returning to Allah knowingly versus unknowingly?
That is a good question. Knowingly, when you walk on a path, one, the path becomes easier and shorter. Second, the happiness of the journey, of the vacation, of the beautiful path becomes enjoyable. Whereas when you have to walk, remember the child, the mom was dragging towards the school. Remember that child? It becomes painful because you did not want it to go. You are going there unwillingly, unhappily. And one of the farman of the Imam Aga Sultan Muhammad Shah Salawatullah Alayhi, may our soul be sacrificed to the Imam, says, the hammer of the unknown is very heavy. You wanted to walk on the path which is known to you and walk on that happily and willingly. Because when you have to walk on that unknowingly and unhappily and unwillingly, it becomes very hard. That is the difference. It becomes short and enjoyable and amazing, inshallah. G.
So does that go back to the question oftentimes we talk about or we hear that eventually or inevitably everyone has to return to Allah? And that is true, of course, as a universal law or principle. But then this part of the question would also have to always be addressed too. It's not just how we go back, but it's not just that we're going back, but it's the how we are going back, which would make a big difference.
That is correct. That is correct. You remember, I always show a clock, and I believe I have saved, as you had asked me one time to save. See, there are different paths. How would you like to return back to Him? You remember this clock. And look at the second clock. You see, there's a long way and there's a short way. But then look at the third one. And then look at the fourth one. Look at how short the happy path, known path, willing path can be. Look at how short that is. And this is what it means by knowingly or unknowingly, willingly or unwillingly, happily or unhappily. Look at the path, long path versus a short path. G.
Fantastic. So we have only a few minutes left. I think we have this perhaps last question here. And they apologize if this has been asked before or not, but why 99 names? Why not 98 or 100 or any other figure? Does this number have any significance or importance in our tariqah? Like, for example, when we recite our tasbih 11 or 33 times. So there's that question. Is the importance to it? Or I think the more general question, why 99? I think that itself is sufficient for the question. I mean, what is the secret behind why not 100? Why 99?
So I wanted to, with the light-hearted, would it make you happy if there were 100 names? Or would it make you happy if there were 101 or 98 names? Would it make you happy? So there was light-hearted reply. Let me give you correct and right and true reply. Allah, who is most perfect, most sufficient. You think He would ever do anything which would give the human mind a sense of incompletion? Think about that for a second. Allah, the most perfect, would ever do anything which is not perfect. And 99 is not perfect. Think about that for a second. Actually, 99 names of Allah are a parable, a key for us, the human, the intellectual, to ask this question that you asked today. How could, not why is not a correct question. How could Allah, who is most perfect and most sufficient, would have imperfect number like 99 and did not make perfect even 100? He have, but He has given you 99 so you may ask and ponder on them and look for that 100th living and the most perfect name. And that most perfect living name constantly changes. This perfect name at one time was called Ali, and that made 100 perfect names of Allah. Then the name changed to Hussein, Zain al-Abidin, Muhammad Baqir, Jafar Sadiq, Ismail, on and on. Then he was called Hassan, Alisha, Sultan, and now that 100th, the most perfect, the most living name is called Kareem. That is the reason that there are 99 names, so we may look for that most perfect, highest name of Allah, the living name, the Kareem, today. Thank you so much. That was a really good question, perfect question at the end.
I hate to break it to, but there's another question that came that actually I missed earlier, so maybe we can consider this a bonus question, if that's okay.
Sure.
There's actually a couple, but I'll start with this one, Liz. So somebody earlier asked that in the earlier session today you mentioned the 4 worlds, the Nasut, Malakut, Jabarut, and Lahut. What do you mean by the world of oneness, which I believe you said was Lahut? What does that mean to say world of oneness?
Where anything and everything is combined and collected in the mono reality, the oneness of the Noor-e Ilahi. There is no multiplication. Would you like me to show you the place of Lahut right now on your screen? Look at the number 1. You see, can you see number 1 on your screen? That is the world of Lahut, the world of oneness right here. That is the world of oneness. Anything and everything after that is not the Alam-e-Lahut. As you see at the Alam-e-Jabarut, there are 4 great Muqarrab close angels. And Alam-e-Malakut, there are many, many Insi wa Jinni angels. And then Alam-e-Nasut, world of creation, then there is unlimited numbers. That is the meaning of Alam-e-Lahut. Lahut. There is no time, no space, no multiplication, anything and everything in the one single Ahad. That is the place of Kullu Wallahu Ahad. Ji.
So I think we should clarify this next question because I think you mentioned already about names and why would that make you happy if it was 100? And then you also, of course, you gave the real answer about how that the living name of Allah or the name for each generation, like we said in the session today, is the particular name of a living Imam who would be, for example, that one missing name example from 99 to 100. But so then someone's asking, what is the esoteric meaning of number 100 names of Allah instead of 1,000 or 2,000? That will be that question will be as if the first question, right? Like why 100? Why not more? So the answer stays the same. There's no real meaning there between, let's say, whether you say 100 or 1,000, 1,002 or 2,000. The point was that I think your point, if I understand you correctly, was that when we say 99, there's a particular wisdom in framing it when the Prophet said there are 99 names, so that the thinking person will say, well, then why not just make it 100? And that's the point, to say there is actually a 100th name, but that will be the living name of the Imam of the time, which makes it complete. Not that there should be, if we can just find 100, because then the question was, well, then why not 200? And that's what the question is asking here, I believe. Why not 1,000 or 2,000?
Right. So that would be argumental then, right? Because if we come up with a 2,000, then the question would be, why not 10,000?
Right.
And then you will come to that and there will be, why not 100,000?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think
Thank you so much. Yes, appreciate it.
Okay, so I feel conflicted because there is a question here, but I think I'll ask it just for the sake of make the person happy. So you've explained the difference between saying ya before a name or a tasbih, and then you said what the difference is between that and saying al, and how ya is when you feel either far away or you're calling upon, or maybe we can say there's some special personal request that you have, whereas al seems to be something of more of a closeness, and how we use that, for example, in our ibadat compared to a tasbih or a zikr. Well, the question now is, and I think it's a serious question that they're asking, that would like to know, is what happens if you say the tasbih without either the ya or the al and just simply the name, for example, Hayyul Qayyum? Is that even a thing, or is that nothing? Is there a question there or not a question there?
Well, my question would be, how close are you, my friend, to the Imam-e-Zaman? Only time we can call Imam-e-Zaman tu without Mr. when you are so close to him. If you feel that close to him, or if you are that close to him, then my friend, you can call him Hayyul Qayyum, you can call him Tu, or you can call him anything and anything you wish to call him with. How close are you to him? Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Let's
thank
stop
you.
here, inshallah. Thank you
Sure.
for your help. Thank you everyone for joining. Ya Ali Madad, Ya Ali Madad.
Yeah, everyone's unmuted, so thank you, Aziz sir.
Ya
And
Ali Madad, sir.
Ya Ali Madad.
Ya Ali
Ya Ali
Madad, sir.
Madad.
Ya Ali Madad.